Today, I want to talk about layoffs. And the reason why is because if you've watched any of my content recently about the economy, I have said that what is going to basically be happening is there are going to be a large amount of people who are going to have their jobs replaced by AI. And we're actually starting to see that play out now. So what I want to do is I want to take a look at a Breaking Points video and then provide my breakdown on top of it, because once again, it's something that I have called now for quite a few months, and I just want to lay out exactly what is happening and provide my take on what will continue to happen in the future.
Turning now to the economy, the AI revolution in the job force continues. Go and put this up here on the screen. This is a tweet from Senator Bernie Sanders. Quote, "Stop hiring humans," a new billboard says. "The era of AI employees is here." Billboards across the country promoting the replacement of millions of jobs with AI and robotics. Great idea. One simple question. How will those displaced workers survive when there are no jobs or income for them? This has increased.
This is kind of dystopian if you think about it, right? Because there are literally billboards being put up calling for companies to do this. And that's the thing though, right? Is that if you look at it and you are an AI company, that's really the smartest thing that they could do, is call attention to, hey, look, our AI, because I guarantee you it's being paid for by, it is, undeniably. It is being paid for by an AI company. And the entire point of it is, instead of giving people money, average Americans, give us the money instead. That's literally the goal of what is happening right now. It's not to increase productivity of workers just for, the good of them and make them super workers. No, it's literally our AI. We will take that money that you would be paying instead to an employee, and we will empower your current employees to have higher productivity, so you need less people. And the gamble is, our AI, you're paying us for the productivity of our AI, which will be more productivity than you would have and less cost than the average American that you would be hiring and putting in this position anyway. And so that is all of it. So of course, putting up these billboards and calling attention to that, you want as many people to buy as much or as many seats of your AI or as much data, tokens, however they're selling it to you. You want that, essentially, you want to call attention to that, and you want to make people aware of that, hey, our AI is good enough that it can replace some subset of your workforce.
Increasingly, the question that many companies and young people are going to have to answer, let's put this up here on the screen. It backs up much of what I have been saying now, is that, quote, more big companies bet they can still grow without hiring. Quote, "It is the corporate gamble of the moment. Can you run a company, increase sales, and juice profits without adding people? American employers are increasingly making the calculation they can keep the size teams flat or shrink them through layoffs without harming their business. Part of that thinking is that AI will be used to pick up the slack and automate more processes. Companies are hesitant to make any moves in an economy that is still uncertain." JP Morgan's.
And the thing about this is that, first of all, exactly what I just said, but also, when you see large players like Amazon doing this, and it's kind of, they've done it across the board, right? They have AWS, or Amazon Web Services, which is more their tech portion of their company. Like, they've done it for years now, but then also now they're starting to make bets on that in their warehouses as well. So it's not just like the highly, white collar jobs that are being replaced by AI, but now that mixing it with robotics, they're also doing the blue collar jobs. And so that is what I've been saying constantly, is that no matter where you are, like, people think, oh, as a blue collar, it's physical labor, I'm safe. No, you're not. No, you're not. No one is safe. Literally, I've said it a million times, I'll say it again. All that there needs to be is a large enough profit incentive for someone to come in and automate your job out of that loop, and you're gone. There's no way, again, with robotics and AI, no job is safe. Absolutely none. And really, the only thing that you can count on is how much longer can I hold on. That's your only bet. So yes, and once again, this is proving out by white and blue collar jobs being disrupted.
Chief financial officer told investors recently the bank has now, quote, a very strong bias against having the reflective response to hire more people for any given need. Multiple other companies last week had sales rose even without adding employees. Financial services companies like Goldman Sachs said that the firm will constrain headcount growth through the end of the year and reduce.
And just the first thing that he was saying there of companies not being willing to hire new people until you can prove that an AI cannot do that job. That has been something that's been reported for months now. There was a company that came out and actually said that point blank, we will not hire another person unless you can prove that an AI cannot do it. So again, this is a trend that has been coming for months now and is just now being, basically, it's being proven out that what I was saying was correct. And it's going to continue to happen. I mean, literally headline after headline right here of companies saying, we're going to hold it on actually hiring people, which is going to be a big problem because, again, the jobs that are most ripe to be replaced is new graduates. Because that is, if you can have one director level person with an AI and maybe one or two employees with AIs, you can replace an entire department. Because, yeah, you just put it in and literally what you're doing is you're just paying someone to be a fact checker or a work checker, if you will, of AI. And you know who's going to get paid to be doing that? Not new graduates. Because the new graduates were the AIs, basically, of the past. And so what you would do is they would do the work, and then you would have a manager who's managing the team who is supposed to oversee your work. That's literally what the model was. And now it's AI does the work, and you have a few people basically checking the AI and making sure that the work is correct. Same exact model, but you replace new hires with AI. That's where we are now. That's not in the future. That's where we are now. And again, that's coming from someone in the manager who has been in the manager position for quite a few years. So this is not surprising to me. And there's a reason why I was able to say that this is what was going to happen before it did. Because I literally just saw the writing on the wall, and I'm letting you know how this plays out.
Roles that will be more efficient with AI. Walmart, the nation's private employer, said it would keep headcount roughly flat over the next 3 years, even as sales grow. Multiple other companies that they list now say that they will be reducing their headcount because of AI, and the ROI of AI is increasing, apparently on their conference call mentions of chief financial service officers. By the way, just this morning.
It's going, for Walmart specifically as well, I'll talk about here, it's going to stay flat until Amazon succeeds with it. And then every single company is going to follow in its wake. Like, they're going to have stocking robots, they're going to have, everything's going to be automated. And that is the way that we're going. Because all they need to do, Walmart is basically, at this point in time, is just fence sitting. Because as soon as the cost even starts coming down to do this, because right now it's kind of like, oh yeah, if we're going to invest in automating our warehouses like Amazon's doing, Amazon's kind of on the cutting edge of that. But any other big box retailer like a Walmart, as soon as they see that that model is profitable and or the prices start to come down to be able to implement that system, they're going to do it immediately. And so one of those two things. So either cost comes down or they see that it's profitable as is. They're going to do the exact same thing. And then once again, we're talking about, and here's the thing is, if you don't work for one of these companies, you may not understand. We are talking about the largest employers in the United States, like Walmart, Amazon, the government. Those are the three. And the only one that's the safest is the government because it's so corrupt and no one gets fired for anything. Like it is It is corrupt through and through, and those out of those three, that is the safest one to be in, because they're not chasing profit motives and they're not, cutthroat companies. The other two, make no mistake, as soon as it becomes profitable to get rid of their employees, they're going to do it. And the concerning thing about that is it will be a bloodbath, because they are the largest employers in the United States. And they do have their higher end, right, their administrative teams and that kind of stuff, but it will be the workers that will be the most impacted. And again, those are the most vulnerable people. Those are the people who need the money the most. Like, that is the biggest issue with this, is that people who are at risk will be harmed the most by this automation and the introduction of AI and robotics into the workplace.
Huge news out of a couple of major companies. I believe we have one of them on Amazon. Do we have that? No, we don't. Okay, so this morning, Amazon is announcing 30,000 corporate employees will be cut from the company, 14,000 immediately, 10% of the entire white-collar workforce will be axed from the company. By the way, another huge piece.
And that's the white-collar component that I was talking about. And again, they've been doing this for years. Like, I know people / have worked in tech before. 100% that is what is happening. That is where they've been doing it. I've been hearing about this, like, every single time you'll see, like, oh yeah, thousands of people laid off. So this is nothing new. This is something that has been happening for quite some time now. And that's why it was so easy to say, oh yeah, this is what's happening. And again, now with breakthroughs in robotics, it's coming for the blue collar as well. But this is just talking about the white collar component of it.
Piece of news. Arguably, in my opinion, more important, UPS will now cut 48,000 jobs in management and operations.
Wow.
That is some disclosed. It would cut 20,000 positions. Previously, shares, by the way, are up 12% in pre-market trading. So
the fact that when you fire people.
The fact that UPS is going to fire 48,000 management and operations people shows.
And the thing that is interesting about that is, because I saw it when it was happening, some calls that this would happen, but when the drivers all unionized, and they were basically, I think it's like, oh yeah, now they're getting paid over $100,000 a year or something for like the full-time driver. This is the foreseeable outcome of that, because all the administrative staff are not unionized. And so, of course, they're going to get hey, we have to pay our drivers more. Well, guess what? The executive team all wants to juice the stock as much as possible. And, what is their incentives? Is they're trying to make the most money for UPS. Well, the second that they are able to reduce HR, reduce any of the other jobs in, the administrative areas, by using AI as a force multiplier for the people who are not laid off, well, guess what? That's exactly what's going to happen, because there was a squeeze put on their profitability from the drivers. And what is more important to their core business, the drivers or the administration? So, of course, they're going to capitulate. Even if they didn't have the union, they were going to capitulate to the drivers because they need those. Although, once again, there are some companies. There's companies in China who are doing the entire delivery, like they have delivery robots. So don't think that they're not coming for those jobs as well. But the most easily replaceable ones right now are those administrators. So they say, hey, we need the drivers still. We're going to continue, we're going to basically bend the knee to their demands. We're going to pay them more. But the second that we have the opportunity to get rid of any other costs, thin out the amount of people that we're paying, and then increase our profitability and how much money that the company is taking in, we're going to jump on that. And that's exactly what you're seeing right here.
That and by the way, that the stock goes up. That actually might be the most AI firing of all time, because now is the time when you don't fire people, because we're going into Christmas season, November and December. That's usually when they surge temporary hiring. They may actually still do that just for the average packers, shippers, delivery people, etc. But the management and operations, they're probably.
And here's the other thing about that, right? Is, as I have been calling now for a month or so, bloodbath. this holiday season. And all of these layoffs that are happening right now, like, there's not going to be jobs for people to go to because everyone is doing these types of things. And then, by the way, other companies see, oh yeah, they're laying off and they're utilizing AI. We're going to copy the exact same trend because their stock just went up. That's the same thing. Every executive team is going to see that and say, we're going to follow in suit and we're going to do the same thing. So this is just the first of a cascading that's going to continue to happen all the way through the end of the year. So once again, it's very grim. I do not like saying, ha, I was right, but ha, I was right. I am 100%, and we're already seeing warning signs. I made a video just recently where I was calling it out, but we're already seeing warning signs that the economy is not doing great. This just sets gasoline on that fire. Like, literally dumps an entire, like, barrels of gasoline on the fire, because that's going to all these people, most of these administrative positions and that kind of stuff, probably not, they don't probably have a ton of savings set aside unless they're really responsible, which is not most people. And so when they get laid off, especially trying to go into the holidays, they might over leverage themselves because they don't feel the full pain because they have severance. So they're, oh yeah, we're fine. We'll do, the typical holiday buying, not thinking I need to put this money away because it may be very tough times coming up. They may not understand exactly what's going on here. But I'm telling you, when that severance runs out, and they can't find a job, that's going to be a doubling down. So it may not even be till like right after the holidays where you see a massive drop. I think it's already coming anyway. I think the holidays are going to be, once again, a bloodbath. I'll call it out again, but it's going to be significantly worse after when all these people who are being laid off now can no longer find work, and then all of the credit scores dropping, all of the default payments on cars, all these things that I have called out as being gigantic issues that are already occurring will just ramp up 100 times worse.
Probably just trying to automate all of those procedures. I mean, it's grim out here. You're cutting 10% of people at Amazon. Again, November, December, the busiest months at the whole company, some 10% of your entire workforce before Christmas. Now you have UPS here being fired, 48,000 people. You have the open acknowledgement. I've talked here about how AI is just like more Excel corporate sludge 90% of the time. Is you no longer have to have a guy who takes minutes for a meeting. It summarizes your stuff. It can help you put PowerPoints together. It can check your commas, your periods, and your footnotes and automate them. That's usually the grunt work that most 22-year-olds get hired in the white-collar workforce. And now all of those are slowly starting to erode. So if you're a new hire out there and you took some $50,000, $60,000 in debt, you're screwed. You're screwed. It's dark.
It is.
That's exactly what I said. It is the grunt work, right? It's a force multiplier for a more senior person. So you have the more senior person, you have someone who would usually be, low-level intern, a new hire, that kind of stuff, and then you have someone checking their work. Same thing with AI. That's literally the exact thing. So new hires are being replaced by AI, and even some, lower middle, right? Because it's what is the level of work that can be done, and then you just need a more senior person to check it. But you need fewer of those even, and that's what you're seeing, and that's what you're going to continue to see.
It is, yeah. And it's here, right? This is not coming, it's here. You're going to see it through two different modes. One is these, big layoffs like we're seeing with Amazon and UPS. Both of them are, important industry leaders, both within their space and also nationally. Other companies are going to see that and follow suit. Amazon also, we covered last week, New York Times got their hands on internal documents showing that they're planning to get rid of 600,000 blue collar workers over the coming years. With those, because Amazon has such extraordinary churn, they're just planning as people leave because they can no longer take the physical stress and burden of working in an Amazon warehouse or as an Amazon delivery driver. As those people leave, they're just not going to be replaced. And I think we're going to see a lot of that.
And that's exactly correct. But that's going to be every company, right? Think about as the older part of the workforce is aging out, people are now starting to retire. There's a lot of those types of people. Those are just going to, again, it's going to be quietly, or, if those are more senior level positions because they are older, well, then they promote someone within, which then, if you know anything about, because they'll tell you career-wise what has been the most profitable is, and I can back this up, is you go from company to company to company to company, because then your earnings shoot up. But if you stay at the same company, well, they give you, if you get promoted, you get a meager pay raise, versus if you were to go to the same position at a completely different company. So along with that is, okay, well then that person gets promoted into a more senior role, and then once it gets down to far enough down the chain, well then they're not replacing, they're just getting an AI to replace whoever that last person up was. So that's what I'm saying is exactly what she's saying is the case that I have made a couple of months ago as well now, is that yes, as people step away or leave for a new company or whatever the situation is, retire, whatever, any of these where they have to then go out and hire a new person, they're no longer going to be hiring new people. So it's going to reduce the amount of jobs available, because then they're going to bring in an AI and they're going to replace that productivity of that person with an AI. That's exactly what's going to happen. So it's not just even the layoffs. Like, the layoffs are shocking right now, but the longer tail of it is that it's not just layoffs, it's also that people are not going to be able to find new jobs because they're not going to be opened again. And that's where it gets really dire, because that's when you see okay, here's the percentage of people who don't have jobs, right? I think right now it's hovering at like 10%. It's obviously higher than that because they don't count people who have given up looking for work and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so that number is going to creep up and will continue to creep up without even any layoffs happening. Because again, it will be as the jobs become available or would have become available, now it's an AI taking it instead.
That too, and that's what these companies who spoke to the Wall Street Journal, that's what they're indicating is, Susie left. Normally we'd hire to replace Susie. Now we're just not going to. We're just going to allow that sort of churn to lower our overall headcount and sub in AI to make our existing workforce, pick up all the slack for the workers that no longer are here. And yes, of course, all the incentives, all of the Wall Street incentives are to move in that direction. So, I really appreciate Bernie, God bless him. Like, he must have the most incredible genetics, because man has not slowed down, still extremely sharp, still absolutely with it in terms of the threats that is facing the American workforce, really the global workforce at this point. And here's the other thing. Let's put C4 up on the screen, and then we can get Sagar's pullout from this. But Wall Street Journal also had a piece about the economy that's great for parents, lousy for their grown-up kids. So, if you're someone who was able to get your college education, was relatively inexpensive, and you at that point in time, you could just get a job out of college, stable career, climb your way up the ladder. Housing was a lot less expensive. Healthcare was a lot less expensive. Now you have assets, now you're in the stock market, your 401k, all those sorts of things are doing good. And meanwhile, your kids who did, trying to follow the same track, go to college, take on the debt, come out of college, and there's nothing for them. The unemployment rate for new college grads is going up and up and up. Now, partly it's because people are worried about a recession and all the tariff insanity and everything that's going on, and partly it is because of AI.
And here's the thing, too. I don't even know that that's necessarily going to be true. Because, yes, there are people who, okay, they have their 401ks and, they're already more or less fine, if you will, right? Like the parents, right? But, you retire now, and I do not think that in 10 years. If inflation continues as it has, they're not even going to be good. They're going to be found in a world of hurt because they look at where they are right now. Like they look at their portfolio and they go, oh yeah, I can afford to retire. So they retire. And then what happens? Well, then say another COVID happens or, another war. Say we go to full-scale war with Venezuela or whatever. And then they print a ton more money. It devalues. Inflation goes rampant again. Well, then at a certain point in time, if you didn't put away enough, you're completely screwed as a retiree. And I think that is a very real threat of happening. Like, I think that is something that is discounted, that yes, they may not be feeling the pain now, but that's not to say in 10 years, they're not going to be feeling it. Because I think it's just a delayed reaction. So they're good now because they're still making money from their job. They have their 401k established, but as they're having to draw from the 401k, well, the problem with inflation is it shrinks what you have. So you may have your Social Security, which will feel much less. I mean, it's kind of pegged to inflation, but not really. Like when it goes insane like it has recently, there's an issue, right? And so it's a lagging effect that those people will feel. So, like, I know people who sprinted to their retirement and, stopped working a couple years early and they were kind of coasting off of it, but they don't have that much money in the bank. Like, they just think, oh, yeah, I'm going to float on my Social Security and, I'll be fine. And not really. It's going to be real hard to survive off of what you currently have invested if inflation ramps up another 20% in a year. Like that is the thing, is people don't have a long enough vision into the future to understand trends in how things are going to say, oh yeah, maybe I should have kept my easy, cushy job that I've had. And, I don't really have to work that hard and I'm just kind of collecting money. But no, they want to sit around and do nothing. And, the throes of retirement, how glorious it is. But the truth is going to hit you hard. And I think that's something that is going to happen sooner than later. Again, I think it's delayed because they're still riding high on, oh yeah, my stock portfolio and this, that, and the other. But when the market, and once again, I will say, when the market tanks, which it will, because it's literally just floated on AI. So if the next iteration of OpenAI or whatever, Gemini or whatever, the next round of AIs that come out, if they are underwhelming, good luck. Your entire portfolio is screwed. You're literally living on $30,000 a year. Let me know how that goes for you.
And put C3 up on the screen. This was the piece that Sagar highlighted in particular. This chart is, this is really, really dire stuff, in terms of the fulfillment of the population, in terms of the stability of the society as well. You only have 11% of 18 to 29-year-olds who have confidence that they will be able to buy a home. But
here's the thing about this. This is insane. Because if you think about your current financial situation, how confident are you that you will keep up with expenses, buy a car, pay an unexpected medical expense, buy a home, find a good job, have enough savings for retirement? None of these are over 50%. And in fact, most of them, like, okay, 30 and older, you have, there are a few of them that cross over 25%. Keep up with expenses, the only one for people ages 18 to 29 that crosses 25%. And that's probably just a bet on, okay, I'm making it now. So like for the foreseeable future, as long as I don't think that I'm going to lose my job, I can continue doing that. But none of these are over 35% even. So think about that. Less than, so if you see 3 people walking down the street, only one of them feels like they have enough confidence that they're going to keep up with expenses. Like this is the world that we're living in, and this is what's so disturbing about this trend, is that no one feels confident about any of these things. And these are like things that are baked into the American dream, or what should be attainable, right? I mean, just buying a car, like, so if your car dies, I mean, I guess repair, right, is an option, but like, oh yeah, go out and buy a car. Like, people, under 25% of people don't think that they'll be able to do that. Like, so 1/4 of the population, if they lose their car for whatever reason, well, they're screwed. And actually, very dystopian about this, I was out just eating some ice cream with family, and I overheard a conversation, and it was a bunch of younger, like 3 younger people, and they were all joking around about how, and it's legally mandated to have insurance in the state that I live in. They were all joking that, like, oh yeah, we can't even afford insurance, so like we just stop paying for it. That's the world that we live in. And it was 3 younger people. That is, when I say disturbing, that is disturbing. But literally any of these indicators, all the things that I read, under 33% or less for each one of those things. I mean, I don't know how, again, these are levels that I see when you start approaching this, where they say, I literally can't afford anything. Keeping up with expenses. Literally affording anything. So when you're seeing them walk down the streets, 2 out of 3 will not be able to keep up with their expenses. So 66% are not able to keep up with their expenses. And when you see that level of desperation, where literally 2/3 of people do not think that they can keep up with their expenses, once again, the parallel that I will draw is that's when you see France and you see people's heads on pikes. That is what you are going to see. We're worse than the Gilded Age. This is unsustainable. Something, and the thing is, I don't think the people who are at the top even understand what is going on. Like, they don't pay attention to these indicators. They don't pay attention to these graphs. They're only worried about themselves. And so the problem with that is then that's when desperation starts. When you can't pay your expenses, that's when desperation sets in. And that's where things are just going to get so much worse. Again, 2 out of 3 people walking down the street cannot keep up with expenses. What does that say about the United States?
All of these numbers are actually really bad. So you only have, just over 25% who say they can keep up with expenses. By the way, numbers are not all that much better. For those who are 30 and older, you're under 35%, maybe that's like 33%, who are confident they can just keep up with their expenses. For 18 to 29, you have under 20% who think they can buy a car. Also under 20%, maybe that's around 16%, who say they could pay an unexpected medical expense. You have under 25% who are confident they could find a good job. 15% say that they're confident they could have enough savings for retirement. And I've been reading this book by Peter Turchin about when societies collapse. Mm-hmm. And his analysis is that the 2 major factors that lead to sort of societal breakdown and revolution are decline in material living standards. And in the US context, he looks at the decline in life expectancy, mm-hmm. Which is, undeniable. And there's this mass disparity too between the wealthy and the poor, et cetera, but that we're going backwards in terms of life expectancy. And the other thing is what he calls overproduction of elites. So if you have a large cohort that are going to college, doing the thing, getting their law degrees or getting their MBAs, thinking that they're going to be as able to ascend, not into the top echelon, but into some level of I'm going to have a house and have a basic stable life, and the society is failing to deliver that. Those are actually, we think about the working class revolution. Those are the people who traditionally become the radicals and the revolutionaries. Yeah. Actually,
I'm really glad you said that.
The frustrated would-be elites.
I wish we had.
And that's exactly it. That's what I have been saying over and over in every single one of my economy videos. Is when the people who go to college do everything right, they are that's what I call the reaching class. those ones are the ones that are going to revolt. Those ones are the ones that when you piss them off, guess what? They're going to rise up against you because they have the wherewithal to say, you're screwing me over. Like, I took all of these steps. I took out the loans. And now I'm working for Uber. Now I'm working for DoorDash. Now whatever I'm doing, that is, I viewed it as, and I'm not calling it this, but I'm saying people who are of this level view that work as beneath them or menial jobs. Why did I take out $150,000 of debt to deliver food to someone? That is where people, like, again, upset the apple cart. That's where you're flipping over tables because guess what? Why did I even do all this to have the same job as someone with no education? You're not fulfilling the promises made to that level of society. And so, again, when that happens, you piss those people off. They are educated. They're saying, this is not right. It's not the lowest class people. I think you should do right by them 100%. I call it out all the time. I make videos about it all the time. But when you piss off that reaching class and you replace them with AI, well, at a certain point in time, a bunch of them group up and say, heads on pikes. And that's what's going to happen. And I think a gigantic component of that is, once again, disconnect. Everyone's so worried about themselves. All the people who are at the very top just say, me, 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 I want to make more money. They have no care whatsoever for anyone else down the ladder. And so by doing that, though, you piss off a bunch of people. And there are a lot more of them than there are of you.
More time. I could go on forever about this, but you are absolutely correct. Something I've always said in some of my arguments with a lot of Marxists and socialists. One of the things that annoys me is they're always like, the working class will rise up. I'm like, what do you tell me about the Russian Revolution? And they're like, oh, well, it was a people's revolution. I'm like, no, it actually was a revolution of the elites. If you read any true biography or history of the Russian Revolution, of Bolshevism, and specifically of Marxist-Leninism, you will discover that the peasant population of Russia was the most supportive of the Tsar. The reason that the Tsar fell was because he lost the entire support of the political echelon, from everyone from the royals to the middle tier to the, the bourgeoisie. Those were the people that rose up against the Tsar and toppled him. The way that the Bolsheviks were able to take power is basically have a bunch of highly educated, former members of the echelon or the gentry class who come in, and that's part of the reason that they target the so-called kulaks at the very beginning in order to subjugate the peasant population. But the point remains, not just in the Russian context.
And here's what I'll say about this, specifically about the United States, is that we've basically, the elites have done this to themselves. Because by shipping out all of the jobs that a lower class population would have and be able to make a decent amount of money, like if you think about people who are on assembly lines for cars or whatever, right? Detroit. Like, the fall of Detroit basically was the signaling of this. What the promise of that is we ship out all of these jobs to other places where it's cheaper. So now what that does is it frees all of that reaching class. Okay, well, here's what you're going to do. This is the promise that we, the United States, and these large companies are making to you is, okay, you go out and you become educated, and now we can have a much larger middle class that can basically do the educated work. So what you're doing is you're pushing the entire population into the middle class. So where there would be a larger, lower class, right, when we were producing things, well, now that's being shipped out overseas. And now your middle class is much larger because we have all these white-collar jobs that, hey, when the promise is being fulfilled and we're all making a ton of money and the companies are not disrespecting and basically taking advantage of those workers and everything's, fair, okay, great. That the society is functioning well. But as the companies, the top people, get greedier and greedier and they squeeze that middle class down, well, now you've fed this, this subset of the population. They're expecting jobs, but now hey, productivity has gone up, so we need less. Hey, now we have AI, so we need less. Hey, AI is improving, so we're going to need even less. Again, the number of people and jobs that are available for the amount of the population that you have shoved into and sold the promise of a American dream middle class life, well, now those people are going to be disgruntled because again, you have educated all of them, and now you're taking what they feel like they have earned away from them. You're pulling the rug out from under them, and that is when, exactly to the point here, that is when a revolution occurs. That is when you end up with heads on pikes. So there needs to be, I think, immediate intervention because, and you know what, I don't even feel bad if that is what happens because the point is, and this is the original point that I'm making, America and large corporations have done this to themselves. By forcing everyone into the reaching class, well, now you're going to have a lot more pissed off people when you're taking their jobs away than, the peasant class or the low class where they say, oh, well, I just need to find another route, to make money and make ends meet. Well, you sold a promise and now you're taking that away, which is way more radicalizing. That's how you end up with a Zohran Mamdani. These things are going to continue to happen.
Context. Even in the French Revolution, if you look at any true violent overthrow, it's these people specifically. This is why I look at Zohran as as a consequence of all of this. Republicans are always dunking on. They're like, oh, you have white middle class people. I go, yeah, but you got to understand, if you're 25 years old or 27 and you move to New York, the prototypical profile is somebody who has like $50,000 to $70,000 or whatever, maybe some more in student debt, was promised a job in X, Y, and Z in white collar workforce. And when the cost of living is where it is, to have a basic life from health insurance to cost of living to rent, etc., it is so untenable that it leads you to believe that the absolute basics of your needs will ever be met. So what do? You're going to back some radical shit. I think that this is a lot of the case for a lot of Trump people as well. And
that's exactly it. That's exactly what I just said. And oh, by the way, if it works out even remotely, if they feel like things have gotten better, you don't think they're going to go to the internet and sing the praises of him, and you don't think that's coming everywhere else? You're out of your mind if you do not think that. And especially if it does work out, well then there are going to be a bunch of copycats because they say, oh yeah, I can make some slick videos, I can sell, socialism or populism or whatever, some form of populism. That's what Trump is. Like, whether you want to admit it or not, the reason why Trump was popular originally, the reason why Zohran is popular now, populism. Populism messaging. Why is now Tucker being embraced by both the left and right wing? Why is Marjorie Taylor Greene having a resurgence? Why is et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? It's all the people who are singing populism and taking care of the average American because everyone is fed up. And it's just going to continue happening, and once again, I will be proven out in time, but especially if Zohran can deliver anything to the people of New York, that is going to be accelerant. Again, that's dumping gasoline on the fire. It's only going to skyrocket the types of candidates like him and everything. Once again, people are ready to flip over the table, and that's what you're seeing right now, is people's hands are on the edge, and they're beginning the motion. But mark my words, it will only further happen and further speed up, and more and more Zohrans will be coming across the United States. Whether it's left Zohran, like in New York, or there will be a right Zohran, and I guarantee it, in any of the red states.
The point remains that if you do not serve and solve a point for where everyone still believes in upward mobility. And
here's the other thing I'll say about that as well, just really quick, is that you may think that's like a hyperbolistic, and you say, oh yeah, well, why isn't it a Trump? The right has pivoted to the working class party. So like, you might think that, oh yeah, just think about 10 years ago. the left was the working class party. Both parties are going to be in the same place. Like, how many things were essential to the left that now represent the right? Like vaccine hesitancy, like the working class party. Like, you may think, oh yeah, there's no way a right could have a copy paste Zohran. It will 100% happen. I mean, just look at the statistics for who's on Snap. Like, same thing. Poor white people. Those are in your coalition now on the right. So guess what? You 100% could get the exact same thing. So when you're crying about, oh, communism, well, guess what? It's coming for your party too, because no one feels good about the economy and where they are in it. And the American dream. No one can achieve the American dream. Both sides go communism, as the right is currently calling it, because they feel like the average person feels like they can't get ahead no matter what they do. In that reaching class, that's when you're going to have a violent overthrow of the system, one way or another. Mark my words.
Specifically for these older people, if you have no faith that your children will have a better life than you, which, by the way, you know, in that article, that's what it's all about. You shouldn't have any faith that they're going to have a better life than you. And I do feel for a lot of them, because there's a term called HINRY, where it's like high income, not rich yet, which is basically what a lot of these people are. They did everything the right way. You know, they have a good job, or whatever, you know, they have a house, etc. And their belief is that their children will do better. So they don't have enough money to like bail their kids out entirely.
Right. They can help them.
They can help them, but you know, there's a big difference between being able to buy your kid a house and then, let's say, like put your kid through college, right? That's like literally a multi-million-dollar difference in assets. So the point is that they don't have enough money to do too much about it, but they have just enough to float them for a couple of years. That level of precarity is also going to lead you down a very radical path. So yes, all of the ingredients are here if we want them. And
that's the other thing too, is that if you have parents who are struggling to try and help you out, right? If there's, you know, their children are in very precarious positions right now. The problem with that is, as I was stating earlier, those people are relying on their savings and stuff. And really all it takes is one massive downturn with the stock market, which I 100% think is happening, and then everything goes to shit, basically. That's where they get wiped out, then their children get wiped out. And again, these are people who were promised the American dream, or in the instance of the parents, had achieved it already, and now it's being taken away from them, which is even worse. Like, that's where you really will get radicalized people, is, you know, they have a comfortable set of living standards. They feel empathetic towards their kids. They want to help them out. But then if there's a huge market correction, which I 100% think there's going to be, they're screwed as well. And then that's the parents and the children. Good luck. Good luck to you.
I mean, look, I always say I think something's going to break, but at the same time, I don't know. You know, the S&P 500 is all-time high today. So what do I know?
Yeah. Well, and I don't even think people are looking for their kids to do better than them at this point. It's just like, can they achieve like the same level of just basic stability, get a house, raise a family, have health insurance, and that's increasingly what is feeling impossible. And you know, those numbers of how young people feel about their own economic situation.
And that's the other thing. Can you really tell them they're wrong?
No,
they're obviously,
of course not.
You know, they're absolutely.
Of course not. I mean, the competition, you know, just to get into college, and then you come out of college, and AI's taking all the jobs. Then I think you already, even before AI, had this issue, and declining material circumstances, and parents feeling like their kids aren't going to be able to achieve what they were, and all this stress. I mean, that's what leads to like the varsity blues situation, where people are so desperate. Oh my God, I've got to do whatever I can to make sure my kid gets some sort of an elite slot. And, you know, so you already had that, and now you have AI coming in and decimating the type of jobs that typically would go to new college grads or new law school grads even. And yeah, it's a big problem.
Last thing, you know, everyone.
That is the point, is that especially when it comes for the upper echelon of that reaching class, because there's, again, a lot of people are kind of funneled into that white class section, right, that I was talking about. So there are people who should technically be in, you know, blue collar jobs or a little bit more of a peasant class, if you will, right? Lower income, and they got funneled into there, but especially the higher end. So when you're seeing these people who are going to these universities, the prestigious ones, and then they come out and, hey, guess what? Now there's no job for you. And especially like law degrees, right? I covered law degrees have essentially, or applications for law school have essentially doubled in the last year. Well, guess what? When those people come out of law school and there's nothing for them because they've been replaced by AI, those are the ones you have to worry about with having some kind of uprising. And again, as the bar is being moved up and up and up, and who's able to achieve that middle class and who's part of that reaching class, they're getting squeezed and they're falling out the bottom. That is where things get very concerning if you're at the ruling class, because that's when they're coming for you because you're not doing right by them.
One says, oh, well, it's better because it was inefficient. There's a lot of social benefits. When I was a very, very young journalist, was I truly adding so much to the conversation? No, even though I definitely thought that I was. But what was I learning? I was learning the craft. I was around other people who taught me the basic building blocks that allow you to progress into a career. So let me defend grunt work. First of all, grunt work is good for you because it teaches you discipline, attention to detail, and gives you the basics so that you can accomplish your tasks and sit around and kind of absorb information and institutional knowledge from other people around you to build a network, which allows you to rise up either through the company or through your industry, or figure out that that's not what you want to do so you can go and do something else. If you don't even get that opportunity, then you get nothing. And
that was always kind of the argument that I made for college in the first place. Is you're not actually going to college in some cases you are, right? If you're a doctor, lawyer, so, whatever, one of those fields where it's like super specialized and you actually need a graduate degree to go in there. But like other people who go in there and they come out with an interior design degree or whatever, and then you go into a workplace and it's just basically learning to learn. And that's the same argument here. Is you get these grunt work jobs, right? The intern, the new hire, these sorts of things, so that you learn, okay, what is the workplace actually like? Are you actually contributing that much? Not particularly. I mean, you are, right, in a certain sense, but once again, if you have a manager level position, they're contributing way more that's valuable typically than a new hire. And so same thing. A manager instead using an AI is going to get way more output than a manager managing a bunch of new hires, or a director, or whatever that setup is. And so that is exactly it. Is it's not even, you're literally taking that rung of the ladder out. So like, where are people expected to learn these skills? Because again, college is one thing, right? You're just learning how to learn, but then learning how to work in a job, that's the new hire position, right? And that's the exact problem, is that's not available anymore, or it's rapidly not going to be.
That's what's so deeply frustrating, I think, for a lot of people. if you're 22 years old and you're just graduating from college, I truly, truly feel for you, because, you were just old. You were just old enough where the old system existed, so you were able to take out the debt. You probably still believed in the dream at that time, and now you're just smashing into reality. And it's going to be a tough climb out.
And here's the other thing about that is that, yes, because also the older generation does not want to admit that things are harder for people now than it was for them. Like, they refuse. And it's the same thing. That's why it is so bad that lawmakers are all 80 years old. They're all geriatric. Is because they don't understand the same struggles. Like, I'm young enough, old enough that I have achieved escape velocity, that I can have one of those manager plus level positions, but still young enough to understand, look at what's going on, and I pay enough attention and go, oh yeah, the people who are coming out of college now are completely screwed. But if you're really old and you're not paying attention to these things, you said, oh yeah, I had to, work all my life and it can't be any harder than it is now, completely ignoring all the things that have happened over the last 50, 60 years, whatever. And so, yeah, that is what makes it even more frustrating, is that no one wants to admit that, hey, things are bad for them and we need to be fighting for positive changes for this group of new graduates in this instance. But it's a huge issue, and I think everyone needs to be paying attention for it and advocating for those people who, once again, are part of that reaching class and are falling out the bottom and are having to become 1099s for Uber, no health care, no, none of this stuff, and they're just getting completely screwed. They're getting the exact same positions of these lower class workers that require no degree for these positions. Because that is where, if you don't want a revolution, you need to continue fulfilling the promise to that group of American citizens. But anyway, that was about all I wanted to cover. I think it is very interesting. I have been sounding the alarm about the economy for quite a few weeks in a row. I've been making these videos, but once again, another indicator that you can see right here with people losing their jobs. It will continue to happen. It was something that I have wanted to talk about, but I've seen headlines for this happening now multiple weeks in a row, and it just got to a point where I just said, hey, I need to cover these layoffs because I have called that there's going to be some very bad things happening over the holiday season, and this is just further ramping in that direction. I do not want to be correct because, once again, I think it leads, if I have not painted the picture sufficiently enough, I think it leads to some very troubling places, but here we are, and you have to call out, when you see it, you have to call it out. So if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content from me, hit subscribe down below. It really does help my channel grow. And if you have made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.